Well, hello everyone. We are back with Peter Granage again today. It is October 13th, 2023. A lot going on in the world. I know I should not jinx gold. It's doing really well today. So I said I'm going to contact Peter Granage to see what he has to say about why are these moves happening today, and what are your thoughts on geopolitical issues that are happening right now. First off, thank you for coming down to the show here. I appreciate it.
I'm always willing to speak to you and your friends in the back there.
Thank you. So what do we got going on, Peter? Why is gold up $52 today? What do you think? Just a typical market move, or Israel
No, this is,
time?
uh, let's take a step back. You know, if you can remove, like I need to, how poorly my mining shares and junior resource stocks are doing, and set that aside because that's what really makes us feel bad. Gold's performed quite well this year, given everything. Let's not forget that last year was at 1650. So today at 1900, $250. I'll take 15% every year for the next 5 years. Okay. So let's give it some credit. And it really was hanging in there until the bonds just caved, interest rates went higher, the dollar saved some safety, but again, because rates are rising, and we saw the paper market attacked as it's been attacked for as long as I've been in this business, almost for 40 years. And what I was saying to people then, and I'll say it now, and I said it in other interviews, when the oil price skyrocketed, people sold cars. You couldn't sell your car. Everybody was a seller. When the real estate market collapsed back in 2008, everybody was a seller. When the paper price of gold was collapsing, you talked to dealers, they were telling you it was unbelievable amount of physical buying being done. People were actually using the decline to buy more. And I think there's a few reasons, and I think they're very critical. I'll go back to the biggest one. It's been mine for the whole year, all the conversations you and I have had. Central banks continue to be aggressive buyers of gold. They don't buy for a trade, and they don't buy simply because they just have capital appreciation in their mind. It's a much bigger picture. It involves the BRICS. We don't need to go into that again, but all that is developing long before anything that happened in the Middle East. That was number one. Number two, which is something that I'm just starting to know some of the Wall Street mavericks, the big shots on Wall Street, the real big ones, are talking about this now. And it gives me comfort because this is one of the reasons why I've been so high on gold. They're noting now that basically the deficit spending is completely out of hand. I mean, we're adding 10 to $20 billion a day to the deficit. And now the concern is coming is, irregardless of whether we get inflation under control or not, interest rates can remain relatively high because it's going to be very hard to provide the needed dollars to keep funding this out of control spending in the United States. And I've seen some of the sharpest minds talk about that in recent weeks. I think that's a very bullish thing. And then I think another important thing is that we're seeing the shift in who's leading gold away from England and the Crimex, sorry, the Comex. You and I and others have known to call it the Crimex,
Yeah.
and move to the Far East, where that is much more physically driven than the paper hangers here in the US and in London and places like that. And all of that has come at a time when the fundamental stories and the things that are happening, like you say, in the world, both here and abroad, economically, socially, and politically, are probably, or I shouldn't say are, the most explosive since I've been in this business for 40 years. So it comes as no surprise. And yeah, I'm Monday morning quarterback in a sense, but I was saying this a week or two ago when we were near 1800, that gold was being offered at the best possible price in years because it was worthy insurance given everything else that was happening. Forget about capital appreciation. Just to the 98 to 99% of the people that I continue to see in my planning business who have no or very limited exposure to it. And I always say the same thing, and then I'll shut up and take your questions. I say to these people, You have car insurance? Yeah, why? Well, if something happens to my car, I want to be able to offset the cost. You have home insurance? Yeah. You have health insurance? Yeah. You have 99% of all your worth in financial assets.
But do you
What
have money
insurance do you
that
have
you
on that?
invest? Yes. Do
What
you have
insurance do you
value
have on that?
insurance? Yes.
Nothing. So I always tell them this, and I almost get the identical answer all the time. Like always, I say, well, you need to buy gold. I don't sell it. I don't get anything on it. I'm not a commission person for anybody, but you need to go somewhere and get physical bullion or something that's really have exposure to gold and pray to God it doesn't go up. And they always look at me the same way. Excuse me, Mr. Greenwich, you want me to buy something that isn't going to go up? And I go, yeah, because if it goes up a lot, that 99% of everything you have, I'm going to tell you it's heading down.
Getting down. Yep.
And still, even after that, and some walk away and go, and then they go listen to turn on Tao TV and CNBC or a talking head about some, technology stock or, and they get lost in that. And that's why until people say, Pete, what could ever turn you bearish on gold? When I see the general public talking about it like they were talking technologies, 2, 3 years ago when it couldn't miss, or cryptocurrencies and all that. But we're so far away from that. And one last thing, and I've been telling you this, and I tell this to everybody. We have one of them, I shouldn't say one of, for me, the most dramatic technical picture on any investment that I ever been involved in my 40 years. There is a 10-year cup and handle formation on both gold and silver. And cup and handle formations are very unique, especially when you're drawing out the handle. The longer the handle goes, the bigger the move's going to be when it breaks up or down. 8 out of 10 times, cup and handles break to the upside, not the downside. So when I take in all my fundamental reasons and then I look at that chart, I can't be anything but bullish on gold. But with the asterisk, things that we normally thought would have done well with them, mining shares, especially juniors, I have some stocks that are down 70, 80%. And I would have told you 6 months ago when they were down 50%, back up the truck. And they
Yep.
went even lower.
Yep.
So
It-
that's the fly in the ointment. But like I posted this morning before we even shot up a lot, I noted I played the old "Do you believe in miracles" from the 1980 Olympics, because I think, as I've said, as hard as it is now to look at these things, we're going to look a year or two from now and go, wow, that fourth quarter in 2023, can you believe what the juniors went down to? They were giving them away. And it's going to take a year or two to see if I'm right. But I really have still confidence that that is the case, especially with the metals performing the way that they're performing.
yes. Yes.
Sorry for going on a lot. Sorry for going on a lot, but
No, that
you
was
got me excited when you
when I said gold is up $52 today. Of course, it was a loaded question because we've had there's a lot going on, and I really was hoping you actually break it down a little more. And I just want
Oh,
to
I
go,
will.
yes, I'm glad, and I want to go back what you said earlier. You mentioned, just for some new listeners or people that are still on that fence, percentage wise, when it comes to mining stocks with precious metals and actual physical bullion, what percentage they should do here and there. I constantly read up on this, or hear people ask me, or my friends, or someone on Twitter. I still call it Twitter. I just wanted to mention, like central banks, when you said buying gold, they are buying physical gold. I know a lot of people that are in this space understand that, but a lot of other people do not. We're talking about, is that correct? You're talking about central banks buying physical bullion,
Yeah,
actually, not mining stock.
yeah. Yeah,
And
they're not. No, no. It's actual
exactly.
physical bullion, and part of that reason is they recognize the evolving changes that are happening on the monetary front worldwide. How the world, in a sense, is being divided up from a trading standpoint, where the United States is going to be outside looking in my opinion, and that there needs to be an alternative to a reserve currency where the people that run that reserve currency are out of their minds. We're complete insanity. And let's get to two other points that I know you want to talk about that are both important: the Middle East and the other one, and that is the political insanity now in Washington. Not only do we have two parties, that will not go in a room and do anything of good work, but instead blame each other till the cows come home. I thought I'd throw that in with your background and say it's their fault. But now, on top of that, within both those parties, there's fractions that are against each other. Here's the Republicans fighting again about a speaker, and the Democrats are seeing these squad people, saying things that are so un-American. It's hard to fathom that they're a congressperson and they say those things. And then you take the Middle East, and that of course is a key factor, what's obviously impacting the markets, and of course helping gold today rise because of the unforeseen what may happen in the next couple of days when most markets are not trading at all. That is a true Pandora's box. It's always been. I'm going to remove the biblical and spiritual end of it, how I may speak because of my faith, and just talk from a secular standpoint for a moment. And thankfully, I've been managed to do that most times in my life. So you have an instance now where you have a country, which I don't care what anybody says, what they might do themselves, what was done last week in the manner it was doing, and just total unconsideration of even rules that, if there is such a thing, the rules of war and all, and the outright slaughter, and that's the only way to describe it, mass slaughter, and still not knowing what's going to happen to others. That country now, Israel, can't just say, okay, let's retaliate and then make a standoff again. Partly because they were caught, I hope you don't mind me saying this, with their pants down. If you think about it, if anybody said to me, if there was one country that knew everything ahead of time and had the greatest intelligence for their size and group, and most authorities say the same thing, it's the Israelis. And somehow with all of that, this disaster happened at a time when their own country is being split in two, that has big fights on how the country should run and so forth. And it's a small little place with multiple sides of places that want to see you gone. So there are so many things that can develop here. Listen, anybody that's foolish to say and not paid heed to that Iran at the end of the day is supplying those lies is foolish. And then think about this. Then how does that spread? How does it get bigger than just the conflict itself? Well, I'll give you one word: Ukraine. Zelensky, he might want to form a GoFundMe page because it's going to be very difficult now to get anywhere near the type of funding that he's been getting, especially from the United States. I mean, outright people saying not another dime, and of course,
Yes. Yeah.
you
I read those.
what
Yeah.
concerns are you going to have? How do you keep funding that? Supporting Israel, possibly support something that may happen around Taiwan at a time when our arms supply itself is down. Many experts are saying we could not go to war now if we had to because our supplies are very low. And let's not forget that our strategic oil reserve, the thing that we built to be in position that if something went so bad we can still operate, is near record lows because this guy that's called president here decided to sell it, some of it, because he thought maybe if I get the oil price down, some gas price down, more people will love me.
Wow.
So there's a whole host of things that you and I can speak for the next few hours and not even begin to cover what is developing here. And that's part of the reason why gold is doing what it's doing. That's what people have done it for a couple thousand years, why they went to it. And it's just another reason why they went to it.
We can sum that up with, if you agree, with just one word: inflation, as wars are inflationary. Based on everything that you just laid out right here, that's exactly what I see. As more funding needs for Israel now, we're going to be already are sending our ships out there, naval ships. This is all inflationary, and we're seeing it. But there is one interesting thing I've noticed, and let me know how it is. You're in New Jersey area, right? Is that correct?
Someone had to live here, so they picked me.
They picked you. Got it. And tell me what like gas prices. Have you noticed any differences? For me, I like to talk to a lot of people from different parts of the country, definitely United States, different states, of course. And I've noticed here, for instance, in Arkansas, we were at about 350 a gallon not long ago. And I've seen some areas like Jonesboro, which is a little bit of a bigger city based on where I live, got like 11,000 people. They're down to like 285, right? So gas dropped from like 340, 350 to about 285. Have you noticed any differences in the Jersey area up on East Coast with this?
Yeah, so gas came off. Part of the reason is, and it always has in the past when we leave the summer season. Uh, we've also just seen, and we saw it today in the consumer sentiment numbers. The consumer is finally beyond indebting themselves. They can't do it anymore. They're up to their eyebrows. And we're seeing a real tail off now in consumer spending. And part of that comes from, you know, owning necessity for gasoline, not the luxury of, driving around and going away in that nature. But I think the bigger issue in that is what is going to happen. We have right now, remember, a so-called, again, continuing resolution again in November without any agreement on financing this deficit. The deficit, by the way, is growing at the fastest rate ever. So, in other words, if you look at just when we supposedly went past the debt limit early this year, we've added, we're heading to where we're adding almost over $1 trillion more. See, it's very hard for me when I remember when our total deficit was just $500 billion and now it's $33 trillion, the total debt that we owe. And we're fast tracking to 50. The Congressional Budget Office now says it could be as early as 6 years when they were just saying 10 years early this year when we hit $50 trillion. And I do this, if you don't mind, because everybody in America should just come and hear this. You owe 50 trillion. The debt's still outstanding. So wherever you financed it before, it's going to have to be refinanced. So let's just say interest rates are at 5%. Listen, 5% is not that high if you lived longer than the last 5 or 10 years. At 5%, that's $2.5 trillion in interest expense. Last year was the best year America ever had in revenue. It took in a little over $5 trillion. You're talking about 50% of everything we take in just to pay our interest.
That's
You
why.
can't even
Yep.
can't even pay for services, military services, let alone all the other things the governments have to spend. And what are these folks doing on both sides of the aisle? Nothing towards that. They're going in the opposite direction. So I say to people, we're not talking 20 or 30 years, which we were able to talk about 20 years ago because it was 20 or 30 years off. Now it could be as close as 5 to 6 to 7 years. Most of us are going to still be around, please God, for that. And it's out of control. And that's why I don't think all this talk of 2% interest rate again or under 2% inflation and all, it's poppycock. It just can't come because we're just out of control the way we're spending money. And remember, we're not just doing it on the federal level where at least we have a printing press. States,
Yeah.
major cities, look at what happened in the cities now because of the immigration problem and all. Corporate debt, consumer debt. That's it. I'm going to just put on my spiritual hat for a moment. Debt is the most damning word in scripture. There isn't one positive word about it. So even if you want to look at the Bible as nothing more than an informative book written by humans, they were very accurate about it, the problems that it causes. And to me, it's a far worse four-letter word than other things that people may yell at, especially if they're, a football team like the New York Giants, where you scream those words all the time now.
Well, I'm going to ask you one more question based on you mentioned interest rates. You talk about inflation, all that. We touched up on gas a little bit. I thought you brought up a very good point because that's kind of what I was thinking too. With the summer obviously coming to an end not long ago, this was inevitable. Nothing goes up in a straight line. I see these waves of inflation as Tavi Costa posted a chart. I don't know if you saw it just yesterday. I retweeted it and it was showing the inflation from the 70s, how it had three waves, and we are only in the wave one. And based on the chart from 71 till about 82, so roughly 10, 11 years, we still have about 8 to 9 years left of a little bit of downtrend of inflation, kind of like cooling off a little bit, and then major spike, then a little cool off, then a major spike before we see a complete deflation. So I will post the chart in the description box of this video so people can take a look. Nothing is more realistic, in my opinion, than that, because we're just looking at history. As always, history repeats itself. If it doesn't, it rhymes. So we can take a look at that chart. And I know you interviewed Tavi Costa. He's got a lot of good charts. He's very active on Twitter as well. And I don't know if you saw that chart or not, but to me, that was a really eye-opener that this was just temporary drop in energy, meaning gas. What are your thoughts on that
Well,
at all?
whatever may occur, we're not going to live in the way that we lived that drove the markets for a lot of years. That's what I'm trying to tell people. We're going to see subpar performance. The problem is most people are still living a lifestyle based on that ability to have that. And that's where the trouble is going to hit. And so, unless there's a miracle, and there's, you can believe in miracles. I think if you stop believing in miracles, it's very hard to live any day. But once people get into next year and realize that the days of double-digit returns and easy access to money with low, almost zero interest rates are gone. Remember another thing, and I'll end with this. People forget that when we had COVID in the early days, not only did we print trillions of dollars to supposedly save ourselves, but the Fed helped many companies who were basically on drip or on oxygen with cheap money to corporate drip. And now those people got to come back to the spigot, and that spigot is shrunk to maybe just a little bit like this versus wide open. And this is all at a time when more people are demanding better interest rates and feel that they can get away with that than when the days when there was just so much money around, they were little or nothing. So there's nothing that I can say other than having faith in Almighty God that's positive at this point in time. And that's why I take the attitude, and I'll close this way, Marco, is that what I tell my own family: it's better to be a live chicken than a dead duck.
Oh,
And
well,
especially if the live chicken is from your farm.
yeah, if it's from this farm, it's going to be alive for sure. They look pretty healthy. That's all I can tell you, Peter. And, honestly, when you look at eggs, this was my biggest, since you mentioned chickens. I ran out of eggs last year. We had like a really cold weather, right, for like 2 weeks. It's usually out here. It happens every once in a while. Nothing like Jersey, right? You might have like a week or two that's pretty cold. That's about it. But they just didn't lay. So I was like, I got a lot of kids. So I said, I'm going to go and buy some eggs. And I buy these, whatever, so-called organic eggs, paying like $6-7 a carton, right? I come back and I open them up and they look sick. So I thought it was just that one carton. So I went back a week later because they still didn't lay. I buy it again. And it was the same thing. They look runny. I would have never noticed that until I had my own eggs that were chickens raised here, born here. And the yolk is so yellow, it's so almost like orange. And it's just the point of the story is to finish this great interview off. Raise your own food yesterday. It is very important to have something, even if you can grow a little plant in the backyard, if you don't have much land or anything. Just anything is better than relying on other people and big corporations all the time.
Thank you.
Yes. And I really appreciate, I'm going to check one more time. Hold on before you go, because it's been 30 minutes. We know Crimex opened up at 8:30 here Central, and it looks like we got up a little more, almost $56. So no bad karma. All right. Peter,
maybe the Crimex took the day off because they heard about the fears of terrorism and everything. So maybe they just
might
took
have,
the day
because
off.
even gold's brother, silver, is up almost $1, which is obviously, for the Bitcoin people, that's laughable. But percentage wise, this is a nice move today. But again, I don't want to jinx it.
Well, let me just say this and close on this. For years, I got abused when I was bullish on gold because I always put silver as a second class. I would always tell people have at least twice as much gold versus silver. I don't believe that anymore. I believe they're equally justifiable. If people are listening and going to get physical metals, I would have close to an equal proportion between gold and silver. I think they both can perform rather relatively the same way going forward.
Oh, well, I'm so glad you mentioned that. And I know I said I was going to close it off many times. And I do want to add this, since we mentioned earlier about the ratio too. I always talked about 70-30 when it comes to precious metals and precious metals portfolio. This is not investing or trading advice. This is something that I came up with based on living through socialism, communism, all that mess that was going on, hyperinflation. I'm a true believer in hard assets. And what I mean by 70-30 portfolio in precious metals, 70% into physical, 30% into the mining stocks, where a lot of people are opposite, or they're only doing 5% or less into physical. And I always say as a joke, but it's really not a joke, I'm working on 80-20 portfolio, meaning taking more profits out of the mining stocks and buying real gold and silver and platinum. I'm big bullish on platinum in my possession in different areas to make sure that it's not in one place, of course, so it's safely stored. And that's kind of been my plan. But it's been since August of 2020 that I have not been able to get to that 80-20 because my mining shares are getting clobbered, as you know, roughly 50%. And I can't take those profits to buy real money with, because nothing gives me more joy than sending a check old school style, sending it out to the bullion, and wait for the delivery of real money in. And that would be my 2 cents at the end of this video officially now.
So do what I do when the wife wants to look at the brokerage statements. I tell her the computer's broken.
Yeah,
I'll
yeah.
try to get to it tomorrow, and then I buy her some beautiful flowers, and she forgets to the next month. So hopefully, you and I, who have a lot of shares, we're going to see a much better 2024. Please God.
Oof, I can't wait, because I can't wait to go on a shopping spree. So for the real money. So thank you again, Peter. And for you guys that listen, please let us know what you think about this video. Share it, like it. And Peter is on Twitter at Peter Granage. You also have a show on YouTube. I will post all the links down below. And you do weekly. Sometimes even I noticed you started to do daily shows. So I will put all those links down below so people can follow you.
Thank you very much.
And
Always
thank
enjoy
you.
speaking with you.
Thank you. We are out.